doing today, everyone? I just want to let you know my book is out and available on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. The name is Parents Are Greatest Teachers. And now, back to our episode.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Alex Balgood. And today we have Dr. Kevin Payne. He's a social psychologist and entrepreneur. He's also an author, a podcast host, a speaker, teacher. He's also a professional skydiver. And this is our second time having him in our podcast. So thank you, Doctor, for being here today.
I am delighted to be here again, and so glad to see you, Alex.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited. And today we're going to be talking about MS. But before that, for everyone that has not listened to our podcast yet, and this is the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my doctorate's in sociology and psychology. I've studied people for 30 years. I spent 15 years as a professor. The last decade, I've been out as a tech entrepreneur, and my company is called Your Life Lived Well, and we help people with the psycho and the social parts of the biopsychosocial model of living well with chronic health conditions. So that is my work and my mission, because I live with multiple sclerosis. I was first symptomatic in 1989 as a young man, and was finally correctly diagnosed in 2006, which I'm sure we'll get into. That's not an unusual thing for not an unusual thing for multiple sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little stuffy this morning, so.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Yes. And I know a lot of people has heard before of someone having MS, or just even the word like multiple sclerosis. But can you tell us exactly what multiple sclerosis is?
Yeah, first, it's hard to pronounce.
Yes.
So it's multiple sclerosis, and most of the time we just call it MS because that skull sound is odd in English. So
yes. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of difficult. So multiple sclerosis, in the first place, it's one of those that probably most people have heard of. They've heard the name, and they know that there's a big bike riding event that goes on around this time every year for raising money for multiple sclerosis, and it's got a fairly high profile, and there are now in the US somewhere around 1 million people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so that makes it a relatively common rare disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's so it's not a common ailment, but as rare diseases go, it's pretty prevalent. And what it is a chronic neurodegenerative autoimmune condition. So let me unpack what those things mean. So chronic. So that means that, in a technical sense, any chronic condition is a condition that's going to last at least 3 to 6 months, depending on who you ask. And MS doesn't have a cure. So once you get it, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. And no matter what some often well-meaning people say, there is no cure. And if someone is running around saying, oh, you just need to eat this particular diet, or you need to do this particular thing, or you need to blow sunshine up your butt, or whatever it is, then you're going to be cured, they are either deluded or lying. Simple as that. And that will offend some people, and I don't care, because you're wrong. And this is really important, that you understand that the people in your life who have MS, you may be with all good intentions saying, oh, well, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that? Well, A, we've already heard that. B, we've probably already tried it. C, it didn't work. Now, as we'll go on, there's going to be a lot of things that we can do to improve our quality of life. So, like for me, nutrition and exercise and lots and lots of stuff like that, meditation, these are really crucial tools to improve my quality of life. But I'm not going to suddenly be cured out of it. So that's the first part. It's chronic and there's no cure. Second, I said it was a neurodegenerative condition. So that's another big science word. And we know that our neural system in our bodies has two kind of basic divisions. There's the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord and the optic nerves. And then there's the peripheral nervous system. And those are nerves that spread out all through your body and allow us to sense things and gather information and bring it back to the central nervous system. They're in the brain and the spinal cord. And the central nervous system is where we process everything we do, feel, think, say, hope, dream, fear, all of that is going on in our brain and our spinal cord. So our brain is thinking all the time, and our spinal cord is like a big train station that is directing signals in and out of the central nervous system, so that it's bringing in sensations and it's sending out signals for us to move our body and do different things. So neurodegenerative means that our central nervous system is wasting away in some way. It is being damaged and it is degrading in its capacity. So neurodegenerative conditions, again, there's a number of them, and some of them are really familiar. So there's multiple sclerosis, there's ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease, right? There's Parkinson's disease that we know of, Alzheimer's disease, and many, many others. And all of these affect different parts of our central nervous system, and it means that different kinds of signals either are degrading or getting lost or stopping their function altogether and getting garbled or noisy and not working properly. So how that is happening in MS is that third word that I said, autoimmune.
Mm-hmm.
Like more than 100 conditions now, we're pretty certain that multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune condition. And that means that our own immune systems have somehow gotten confused. And normally our immune system is supposed to protect us from foreign invaders, and it's supposed to kill those viruses or bacteria that are getting in and potentially causing harm. But our immune systems have in their confusion fixated on a part of our own body and is attacking some cells in our own body. And for multiple sclerosis, the cells that my immune system are attacking are the myelin cells, which are it's this fatty covering around some of the nerves in our central nervous system. So just like the wires in your house have a rubber coating around it to keep the signals moving through and to keep them from short circuiting, well, our the white matter in our brains and spinal cord have myelin around them. And when that myelin gets degraded, then the signals can get broken, they can get lost, they can get short-circuited, they can get, any kind of problems going on. And since, as I said before, everything that we do, feel, think, say, hope, whatever happens in our brain and our spinal cord, the symptoms that we experience depend on where that damage occurs. So the symptoms of MS are literally all over the place. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but like personally, my symptoms, yes, I've got numbness. Yes, I've got difficulty moving my legs sometimes. I've got chronic pain. I've got chronic fatigue. I've got chronic confusion. Sometimes it's called cog fog or cognitive fog in the MS community. And I've got parathesias, which are phantom feelings that are always happening. Mm-hmm. And I've got another 30 symptoms that are cognitive and emotional and physical and operational that come and go. Yeah. So that's kind of a nutshell, what MS is.
Yeah.
It's a confusing beast.
Yes, yes. But I think definitely like you put it in very simple words for everyone to kind of like grab a sense of what MS is. And I know you mentioned all these symptoms that MS has, and I think is that why it's so complicated to actually diagnose someone, because it has so many different symptoms?
Yeah, that's certainly a part of it. MS is often called a snowflake disease because no two cases of MS are exactly alike, just like no two snowflakes are alike, because it depends on where my damage is. If the damage is in one part of the brain, I'm going to have trouble with my legs. If it's in another part of my brain, I'm going to have labile emotions that I can't control and that are all over the place. If it's in another part of my brain, I'm going to have difficulty thinking certain kinds of thoughts and so forth. And part of the problem is that there are now 4 recognized types of MS, and there used to be 3. Now there's 4. They added clinically isolated syndrome at the beginning. And so what does this mean? Multiple sclerosis literally means many scars. Okay, so that word sclerosis, it means scars. And if you look at our brains and spinal cords under an MRI, what you'll see is that there are these, in some places, these ghostly white patches, and that's the aftermath of the scars from when our immune system tried to attack those cells in that part of our CNS, and then our system tried to repair it the best it could afterward. And so you get the scars, just like you get scars on your skin after you're cut, right? And so there's that, but you also see these bright white parts, and that's where active attacks are going on in our system. So in general, MS has a relapsing remitting form. So that means that the symptoms come and go. And then over time, the symptoms just kind of stick around, and you will relapse further, but you never remit, you never get better. And so that's the progressive form of the disease. And right now, technically, I'm still, remarkably, after all these years, relapsing remitting, but I have definitely come to a place several years ago where a lot of the symptoms don't remit. I mean, they're just there all the time, and they'll get a little worse and a little better, and so forth. And as we go on, we might talk about how exercise and skydiving has really actually improved some of my symptoms. But this is life with MS. It is unpredictable because you never know where the damage is going to happen. You never know when you relapse. Is this going to be the time that it's never going to remit, right? So you always have to ask. There've been a couple of times where I've ended up with a serious attack and been paralyzed on the ground, and the first thought that happens is this the time it's never going to get better? So yeah, MS is it is a confusing beast. It's difficult to diagnose because all the symptoms of MS overlap with other conditions.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got numbness and paresthesia. Okay, well, there's a lot of other conditions that do that. You've got cog fog. There's a lot of other conditions that do that. You have trouble moving your legs. There's a lot of other conditions that do that. And so it is often what's called a diagnosis of exclusion. You've got to go through and test out all the other possibilities and rule them out until you finally get to MS. Now, used to be that the only way that we could be certain was with a spinal tap. And spinal tap, because there are certain there's certain uniquenesses in our spinal fluid that you're only going to find if somebody has MS. But nowadays, like, I never had to have a spinal tap because my MRIs were so clear they showed enough damage. Because remember, it's multiple sclerosis, so many scars. So technically, this is going to sound weird, because technically, the way that you have MS, the reason you have MS is because you evidence at least 2 areas of damage in your central nervous system that occurred at least 2 times.
Oh, okay.
So what a weird way to diagnose it, because it doesn't say anything about what's doing it or why or how or any of that, just that you have that kind of damage.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's pretty complicated still, even with our technology. I know with MRIs, it's an amazing test that helps us find a lot of things. What are some of the things that I know you mentioned nutrition, exercise. I know specifically for you, you've done skydiving, which is some very extreme. I'm sure there's not a lot of patients or people with MS that has done this. This is a very specific thing that you've done to help.
Yeah, I know one other person with MS who skydives, but if somebody else is out there, let me know, because I'd love to know.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit, what's some of those things that you have found that have helped you in this journey with MS?
Sure. I think it's helpful to look at it this way. With multiple sclerosis, your body and your brain and your system have been pushed to the edge, and you are sometimes at the limits of your capacities to deliver more often than we normally are. And so what that means is you've got to become more aware of yourself and your true limits, and you've got to become more protective of how you treat yourself, because you don't have the margin that you used to. Because let's face it, most people are kind of sloppy about how they live. They don't really treat themselves very well, and the consequences of that with MS are much more serious, because that normal benign mistreatment can be much more stressing and much more taxing and much more damaging for us, because we've already got all these other things going on. So there are lots of things that normal people can do to improve their quality of lives that are much more crucial, I think, when you live with something like MS. So let's begin with, say, meditation. So meditation, I use it for a couple of things. One, I always start my day meditating. First thing I do. And the reason why I do, I'll do other kinds of meditations, but the one thing that I always do every morning is what's called a body scan meditation. And I go through and I visit consciously, mindfully, with awareness, every part of my body. I take about 20 minutes going through and saying, oh, okay, so there's pain here, there's numbness there. My signals are a little janky when I'm trying to communicate with this part of my body, etc. And that way I know this is where I'm having difficulty today. This is where I'm operating pretty well. This is how I'm feeling. And I can plan my day with an awareness of what I'm going to best be able to deliver that day.
Mhm.
So I know that, oh, if I'm really fatigued, then there's certain things I probably need to do early in the day because I won't be able to do them later in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of thing. So it helps me with planning, it helps me with awareness. And with meditation, we're also looking at how we channel our attention. And we know that, we know this, pain is not just a simple signal.
Mm-hmm.
And pain is, especially if you're dealing with chronic pain, it is complex and layered, and it's not just a pure physical signal. Because like for me, yeah, I've got pains right now in my thighs, for example. And if I looked around on my thighs, there's nothing that's burning or crushing or tearing or cutting me or anything like that. It's damage in my central nervous system that's sending me that signal. Once I understand that in this circumstance, pain is not an urgent signal that I have to do something about, I'm starting to do what's called cognitive reframing. And with cognitive reframing, over time, you can shift how you experience that pain. So for example, for many years, my pain was daily, and I record this. So my pain was daily on an 11-point pain scale, 0 to 10, that standard scale they use. I was daily a 6 to 8. Okay, that's seriously getting in the way of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I refused to do the opioid thing. So, because I just didn't want to go there and take those chances because I knew the research. And this is, we're talking over a decade ago here now. But I'd been reading in the pain literature for a long time because it was relevant to what I was building. And as a social psychologist, I knew that pain, the way we experience pain, is conditioned by all of our life experience.
Yeah.
And so by consciously working on how I framed my pain, now my condition hasn't changed. I'm still getting those signals. What was a 6 to 8, and I was popping 24 ibuprofen a day.
Oh.
Which is really bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonder I didn't end up with serious liver damage or something. But
Right.
I was, it was in a bad way. But through cognitive reframing now, my pain every day, it's still there, but it's a 1 to 3.
Mm.
And a 1 to 3, yeah, it's annoying, or I'm aware of it, but it's not getting in the way of my life in the same way. And people think that's remarkable, but what I will tell you is there are good, relatively large scale longitudinal studies that have been replicated now that show that if you educate yourself properly about pain and reframe the way you are dealing with chronic pain, you can do that same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's really important, on the one hand, meditation, mindfulness, cognitive reframing, those sorts of things, because, like for another example, the one symptom that I got at the very beginning, I was itching everywhere. This is back in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really annoying. You know how annoying it is to itch and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So imagine for almost 33 years now, I have constantly itched. I'm constantly itching right now. My whole body is itching. And it's a paresthesia. And I can't, I'm not red, or there's no rash, there's no external thing. It's damage in my central nervous system. And if I scratch it, it's not going to do anything to help. So I have had to use cognitive reframing to learn to ignore the itch and learn to not care. Just like I don't care about the pain, because the pain signal and the itch signal are related to one another.
Mm.
But that's really important. Second thing that's really important is nutrition. You've got to give your body the right building blocks, because your body is still going to do everything that it possibly can to try to heal itself. If you're not giving it the right building blocks to do that with, it's only going to be able to do so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've already established that you can't completely heal from MS, but you can definitely improve things quite a bit in how you experience it. And so for me, it's pretty simple. I try to eat food that remembers where it came from,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't eat fast food. I haven't eaten at a fast food restaurant in, I think, maybe once in the 21st century.
Wow.
I mean, I just stopped, and
Yeah.
I don't do that. So I generally cook for myself, and I like fresh vegetables and fruits and lean meats, and a wide variety of things. So for me, often it's maybe some steamed vegetables and noodles and lean meat, and that's the kind of thing that I'll eat for dinner. And in the morning it's a smoothie and protein shake. I'll have a smoothie with vitamins and supplements, and then go work out, and then follow it up with a protein shake, and that gives me the right kinds of building blocks. If I eat that way, and so it's not hard. You just have to get yourself into the habits. And this is one of those things that back in the mid to late 90s, 97, 98, when I had an exacerbation before I was correctly diagnosed, but it was an exacerbation. I completely came from together with that one, and I ended up gaining 120 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And over a span of about 2 years, I went from the size I am here, this is pretty much my normal size. I went from a 27-inch waist to barely squeezing into a 47-inch pant.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even notice at the time, because I wasn't paying attention to myself. And one morning I woke up and I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I saw myself really for the first time in a long time. And I said, oh my gosh, I look like the guy who swallowed Kevin. But what I didn't know was I'd had a really nasty exacerbation.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what was happening. I got depressed over it, and then it remitted again.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I went back to my normal habits. And over the next 2 years, I lost 120 pounds again. And I've kept it there for, 20 years. But that's the kind of thing that can happen with MS. And that's also, really illustrates why the nutrition and the exercise is really important. And what we know now, increasingly, is
Mhm.
that everyone can exercise. And they used to say, even with say cardiomyopathy, which they used
Mhm.
to say, don't exercise, right? You can't exercise. Now, the latest studies are coming out and saying, no, you can exercise. Now, you need to do it under, the correct medical supervision, and it needs to be easy exercises, easy to moderate exercises. You're not going to go out and crush it in the gym. But the point is, there's this general principle about living systems.
Yes.
They will adapt to what you give them. They if you don't challenge them in some way, they will pull themselves back and they will atrophy, because they know that they're not going to be expected to deliver anything more than that.
Mhm.
So if the challenge that you're giving your system is every evening you're crashed on the couch for 4 hours with a bag of Cheetos and Netflix, then that's the challenge your body and your brain are going to live down to, because we're cognitive misers and we're resource misers, and we want to expend as little effort as possible to get through where we want to go. And it's a good evolutionary principle. However, if you consistently, gradually, carefully, mindfully challenge your system will start growing to
Mhm.
meet those challenges. And so for me, physical exercise and regular cognitive work is about keeping my system at the level that I need to deliver what I want to get out of life.
Mhm.
It's not it's purely functional. It's about, if I want to go out and have these experiences and have a good quality of life, then my body has to be able to deliver
Exactly.
for those things. Okay, so how do I send that signal to my body? Well, I exercise regularly. It's not just cardio. You got to do resistance training, and this is, so like for me, my specific workout is, I've got a really nice gym at home, and I've got freeway, I've got dumbbells from 5 pounds to hundreds, and I've got the benches, and I've got the pull down stuff, and I've got a rowing machine and a treadmill, inversion board. I like that.
Mhm.
And so I don't have, I set my life up so that I don't have any excuse not to do that. There's this big room downstairs full of expensive equipment that I've collected over 30 years that I'm going to use, which sounds like a lot to do, but actually I've spent less by getting it than a gym membership every year for 3 decades. So
Yes, that is correct. And I
yeah.
know, like MS, like any other chronic disease, it's a lot of the mental game. And I
Mhm.
know for just anyone that has been diagnosed, I know, and not just MS, but any other chronic disease, it's definitely hard to process. It's probably a shock, and maybe all these thoughts come to people like, I can't do it, I can't live like this. And so what are some of the things that you went through to actually um, get your mind straight to say this life can still be good even with MS. Still life can go on, and life doesn't stop just because this little bump in the road.
Yeah, and the cognitive and emotional parts of MS are brutal. And in the abstract, people get the idea of a degenerative disease. But this idea that your body is going to keep betraying you in more and more ways until it's not going to work for you any longer.
Right.
But that is so different from being faced with the reality of it. And the reality of, now my leg doesn't want to work today. And on the one hand, you can think, well, that's no big deal, but it's like, okay, think about this for a second. You and most people go through your lives every day not thinking about your bodies. You say, oh, I want to pick up that thing, and your hand reaches out and picks that thing up. You say, I want to walk over there. You stand up and you walk over there, and you don't think about it. You navigate obstacles and all these little things going on in the world, and you don't think about it. But what happens that first time when you say, oh, I want to get up and walk over there, and you're unsteady, you're dealing with dizziness and vertigo, and you kind of wobble, and you have to start like grabbing onto a wall or things like that, and your legs are not lifting properly, and you fall over halfway between here and there. And you find that you can't get up. How helpless would that make you feel? How hopeless would that make you feel? I mean, this is really crushing. When your body can't, when your brain can't think its way through an everyday problem that you have solved 1,000 times before. When your memory isn't working, when you can no longer trust that this emotion that you're feeling is legitimately related to something that's going on in your world, and not just some kind of a random short circuit in your brain. We have to fundamentally trust that our bodies and our brains are just kind of invisible in the way they work. We don't have to think about them. And now, all of a sudden, with MS, there's this whole other layer of having to think about everything and having to work through everything that used to be something that we didn't even give a second thought to. And there's that massive uncertainty in, will I be able to do this tomorrow or next week or next month? And that is terrifying. I mean, flat out, it's terrifying. I got to the place in my life, and I'm not a person who lived their life from fear. I was that kind of person who always was pretty confident. Some would say too confident, and if a new experience presented itself, I'd say, okay, let's give it a shot. And that's why I have so many colorful stories, because I said, okay, do whatever life presented me, and that was the way I liked living. I think life is about collecting new experiences, and meeting new people and doing new things and going new places, and that's fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when your body betrays you time and time and time again in new and creative and surprising ways, suddenly that's terrifying, because you never know when you're not going to be able to trust it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I found my world getting really small, and I found myself getting really angry about it, because there's a whole part of you that can react like, this isn't fair. And it isn't. It isn't fair. So what? Life's not fair. And it really, really sucks. And I'm not saying it doesn't suck. It sucks for me. However, everyone has their own flavor of suckage in their life, and it's not a contest. This just happens to be the really sucky thing that I have to deal with, and that a million other Americans and 2.8 million other people on the planet and counting have to deal with. Okay. And yes, in the, you know, the range of how much does this suck? Is it pretty sucky? Yeah, probably. But again, it's not a contest.
Right.
Okay. It's just what I've got to navigate. Okay. Not what I was planning, not what I was wanting, but if I don't, no one else will. And so for me, I had to figure out a way to regain some confidence in myself again.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit, I'm probably more dense than the average critter. And so the way I came up with for doing that for me was going back to skydiving and becoming a legit skydiver.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in 2020, I logged 370 jumps in 1 year. And that was about taking myself to the edge and saving myself with my wonky body, literally saving myself, deploying my parachute, landing, you know, standing up a landing on target every time. And I'm not suggesting that anybody else go do something like that, because that's probably silly and over the top. But that's really what I needed, because it was something that I had loved and I wanted to do, and I'd given up, and I, you know, it was a childhood dream, and I wanted to be able to be a serious skydiver. And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't care what your thing is, find your thing.
Yes.
Find the thing that is going to give you joy and accomplishment, and let you feel connected to the world and to other people, and do that thing. And understand, you know, even with something like MS, it was not easy for me to go back to MS. It takes 25 jumps to get your A license in skydiving. That's your first license in skydiving. It took me 47 to check everything off, because my legs didn't work right and I had a lot of extra demands in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And was that tough? Yeah, that was tough. That was really tough. It's kind of humiliating and embarrassing sometimes, because it, you know, it took me twice as long. And I was a guy who, you know, had done it years before, so I knew what I was coming into. And it was still, even though I knew what it was still a matter of getting my body to actually do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had to, and I think this is an important thing, I had to become more humble. I had to cultivate humility, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're faced with challenges like MS that are so extreme that they're going to knock us down. And we're going to think that that's not fair and that's not right, and I shouldn't have to do that. And it doesn't matter, because you do have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You are now in a position where you do. And so when I took myself back to the beginning and rebuilt myself humbly, and got the help and did the extra work, I was able to do it. And that was a wonderful life lesson for me, because for so many years, I had always been the expert in the room. I'd always been Dr. Payne, professor, expensive consultant, whatever that was. And I needed to do something that I literally was a novice at, that I sucked at, that I was going to have a difficult time at, because I had to go back and rebuild those edges. Not to where I thought they should, not from where I thought they should be, but because my condition had knocked me back a long way. And that was part of the reason that I was able to do this, and that I'm able to do this, because I took myself back to the beginning and did really small baby steps. Because if you try to run before you can walk, you will injure yourself, or it will become traumatic. Okay. Right. That is, you are setting yourself up for failure. And then you think, oh, I can't do that. And you give up and you back off. What I'm telling you is go back all the way to the really tiny, embarrassingly stupid small steps, and get really good at the basics and get really comfortable there. And then take the next small step. And then take the next small step. Because if you're not doing that, and then allowing yourself to rest and relax and recover, and dealing with that good nutrition and all of and sleep. Please sleep, Americans, sleep.
Yes.
And I am religious about my sleep. And because that is the time that our bodies recover and repair and restore ourselves. And that's not just our bodies, that's our brains too. All the plaques that we build up in our brain over the day, that's the opportunity that it has to clean everything out and engage in neurogenesis, growing new neurons, which we now know we do all of our lives. Even though it slows down as we get older, we still can grow new nerves. We have not only neurogenesis, but we have where we're growing new nerves, but we're repairing and we're cleaning everything out. And that happens when we sleep.
Yes.
If you don't sleep, if you are cognitively foggy and grumpy all the time, get more sleep. And people have this "I'll sleep when I'm dead" idea. That's stupid. Yes, I understand. Sometimes you want to get out late and woohoo and party. Understand that you're going to have to recover on the other side, and allow yourself that opportunity.
Yes.
And with MS, I got no choice about it. My limits are hard and fast limits. I had to learn to respect my limits.
Yes, I think, as you said, the sleeping, it's super important. And I think we take for granted a lot of the things that we normally do without thinking. And even I feel like even if you don't have any chronic disease or anything, I think taking care of our body, being aware of our body, it's super important as we grow older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a lot of ways, many of the things that I face with MS are things that I naturally would have started facing in my 70s or 80s, for example. But I just had to start dealing with them much earlier in my life, and that's kind of a lesson, because what we're understanding now from all the research is that growing old doesn't need to mean becoming infirm.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of emphasis out there talking about expanding lifespan, but what I'm more interested in is expanding health span.
Yes.
And health span is the proportion of our lives when we are healthy and functional. And to me, even though I have MS, I want to function as well as I can, 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 and then drop dead.
Yes, exactly.
I want to minimize that that time of infirmity that we associate with extreme old age. And it turns out we can do that, but we got to start building the right habits now, so
now
that
when you're older. Yes.
and it turns out, what I want to also emphasize here is, again, new good studies in the last few years have come out that say it is never too late to start.
Exactly. Yes.
It is never too late. You just have to start really, really small. And that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely we have to reframe the mindset that being old or being sick, it's like the end of your story, or like, this is it, you're grown old, you're gonna have pain, you're not gonna be able to do exercise and all that. I think that the mindset, it's terrible, because it's just that's how you end. But if we actually go ahead.
It's true. I think it's really interesting, because now I'm at the age where, so I'm in my 50s, and I'm at the age where you really start seeing people splitting into two groups.
Yes.
And you see people who are, I don't think I'm a 52-year-old guy. I'm not trying to be younger than that. Most people, if they see me and they interact with me, they guess my age around 40, low 40s. That's and okay, but that's their perception, right? But I know lots of people my age, like that I went to high school with, that now look closer to my parents. And we're starting to, go in these two different directions, and there's not a lot in between. And what I'm here to tell people is, even though I'm living with a chronic condition, I am going to do everything I can to preserve as much capacity as I can for as long as I can, because I'm interested in living a good life, a quality life, for as long as I can.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely the mindset. We need to reframe that, and yes, to just even live a better life. I think that will really help us out to keep eating good, exercising. I think moving, it's one of the things that people stops just because they're like, well, I'm old, I don't get to play ball or whatever it is that they used to when they were younger, just because now, they're tired from work, or their kids or their grandkids or whatever. But I think keep on doing the things that make you happy when you were younger. That's what's gonna keep you healthy and with a good quality of life as you go along your older life.
Yeah, there are groups in skydiving for old skydivers. So there's POPs, parachutists over 40, spelled with a PH. So, there's that. Check. There's the Fast 50 for skydivers over 50. Then there are groups for jumpers over 60, 70, and 80. And
it's incredible.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm going. I've got some guys that I regularly jump with who are in their 70s.
That is amazing.
We can keep living. We may have to accommodate things. We may have to do things a little bit differently, and that's okay. That's understandable. But we can keep living, even if we're getting old, even if we've got MS, even if we've got, whatever challenges in front of you in your life.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all these wisdom, all these tips and stories. I think it's very important for people, for other people that with MS, to know that there's people with MS out there living a full life. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we go?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I'm here putting a really good face on this, but I want to really emphasize that it's not easy.
Correct.
And don't expect it's going to get easy, and don't expect that. I was reflecting on this morning before we talked, and it's we had this idea that if we can make a change in our life and we can keep it up for a while, it's going to suddenly become easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it will become better, but there's always going to be periods where it's difficult. Life is never going to get to the point where you've got it all made, you can kind of kick back and coast on all of it.
It's a free ride.
Yeah, you are never going to get to that point.
For sure. Yes.
And so understand that, and just remember that, and when that time comes around, and you know it will, acknowledge it and just take that next step, right?
Yes.
Just
Sure.
keep going.
Just
and
keep
be kind
going.
to yourself. Yeah, and be kind to yourself along the way.
Yeah. And I think that goes for not people that's going through any physical challenge or, any disease, but I think just in life, we go through many things that, that's when we, as you said, we need to be kind to ourselves and be patient and know that life is not going to stop. So we must just continue.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being here today. I will put all Dr. Payne's information on the notes for anyone that wants to contact him, see his amazing videos, skydiving and all that. If you need to know any more information about me, is there something else you want to add?
No. Yeah, just put that in there. Just go to yourlifelivedwell.co, and
Yes.
they can figure out whatever they want from there.
Yes, I will put all his information, and I will also put all my information. If you need to find me, you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also buy my book. It's available on Amazon. It's Parents Are Greatest Teachers. And so, yes, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for listening today.
It's always a delight, Alex. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor.